Welcome everyone to the 180th Celebrity Synastry chart reading, where we will be looking into Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds. If you don't know me, hi, I'm Madeline and it is so nice to meet you. On this channel, I look at the dynamic between two celebrities using astrology. For those new and returning, I take notes on a synastry chart looking at the personal planets, signs, aspects, and birth times available house overlays. I share these notes and add my extra insights and interpretations along the way. So if that sounds good to you, subscribe and click the bell to join us twice a week, and let's get right into this one. Starting off the sun, we have Blake's sun in Virgo and Ryan's sun in Scorpio. It's a practical relationship and they tend to be hard on each other, which I think kind of goes to their sense of humor that they're known for with each other. They're both very I don't want to say they're critical of each other. How do you describe this sort of humor that they have together? They are I guess very sarcastic, you could say. It's not sarcasm though at the same time. I feel like there is a specific word for it, but I can't find it. But they have that weird sense of humor where they are quite hard on each other and a bit more rougher with each other. They enjoy talking to each other, and Blake doesn't understand Ryan's emotions. Blake thinks Ryan should be more modest. Blake's sun overlaid in Ryan's 12th house. They're different people and it's an atmosphere of mystery. Marriage is not possible. I mean, I guess the elephant in the room, it is a bit of a funny context of how they met. Apparently, because I've always heard of, Ryan and Scarlett were married at the time, and it is a bit of iffiness of how that relationship ended or when it ended and when Blake's and Ryan started. Apparently, Blake was also in a relationship though, so it's, at the time when they met, marriage was not really possible. I don't know if we'll see a bit more, maybe towards the iffiness of that timeline, maybe we'll see something a bit more clearer, but I think this, marriage not being possible, certainly at the time, it wasn't. At the time when they met, I should specify. They don't understand each other and they have no idea why they are together. Again, I imagine this would be a bit more, maybe even now, but maybe a bit more when they were, I don't know, because they met on the movie, right? It was a movie set that they met on. Maybe they didn't know why they were put together on the movie or something like that. Hopefully by now they know why they are together. Blake finds Ryan unpredictable and Blake sees Ryan as exotic and strange. Blake feels Ryan doesn't approve of her and the relationship requires a lot of patience. Blake is attracted to Ryan against her own judgment. Not surprisingly so, for there's several layers why she shouldn't be or shouldn't have been attracted to him. Ryan's sun overlaid in Blake's third house. There's a comfortable atmosphere and Ryan thinks Blake is brilliant, so we saw how Blake feels Ryan doesn't approve of her, so it seems like he does, thinks she's brilliant and everything, so that's there. They enjoy talking about their days, which I think would be, kind of makes sense considering supposedly they're quite involved in each other's careers and everything. If they're very open with each other and they, talk about their careers and everything, because that is what most of the days would be, talking about careers and everything. So I think it makes sense. Ryan thinks Blake is predictable and Blake feels smarter around Ryan, which just missed that. It's interesting how we saw how Ryan thinks Blake is predictable and Blake thinks Ryan is unpredictable. So assumingly Blake is a bit more predictable and Ryan's the more unpredictable one. Ryan sees Blake as someone with good common sense. Their suns are sextile to each other, so they get along and they are supportive of each other. Again, that's sort of, thing with them being very involved in each other's careers and everything. It's a mutually beneficial relationship and they help with each other's self-esteem. They are comfortable and natural with each other and they are both willing to make the relationship work, which I think helps because we did see how the relationship requires a lot of patience, so it seems like that patience is there. Blake's sun is sextile Ryan's moon. It's an easy friendship and a fulfilling relationship. There's a natural compatibility and they are cooperative with each other. Blake depends on Ryan's support and Ryan trusts Blake's wisdom, which, goes back to he views her as being very brilliant. She feels a lot smarter in this, so she, has the smarts here. Blake's sun is square Ryan's Venus. Their views on the world clash and there are arguments over money. It wouldn't shock me. Like, they have a lot of it, so I'm sure at some point there would have been arguments about it. It's not as promising as it looks. Again, kind of going back to the idea, well, I guess what's going on now with them, I think for a long time they were kind of seen as the ideal couple, but now there is a lot of, discourse and discussion about, like, it doesn't seem as promising as it once looked. Love can easily turn into hate, and Ryan strives to keep the relationship balanced. They both hope to find what they are looking for in the other, which makes me think, considering the potential context of how they met, I wonder if, it was one of those situations like, I get a lot out of, my partner, but there is one thing I don't have. And then you meet someone that has that one thing and it's like, wow, that's the perfect person for me now. That's sort of like, I guess, cheating mindset, you could say. And that mentality behind it, why someone would step out. So I wonder, because both of them were in relationships, so both did have something they were kind of looking for in the other potentially. So that is there. Blake is selfishly ambitious. Blake's sun is square Ryan's Jupiter. They have different values and they may overindulge each other, which again goes back to how we just saw how the views on the world clash. Excess is from good intention and there's a strong desire to make each other happy. Ryan has the ability to cheer up Blake and they both may expect too much from the relationship. I mean, in the context of if they both hope to find what they're looking for each other, if that is related to like that whole mentality of like, the one thing that my partner doesn't have is like everything in someone else, if that makes sense. That is a lot of expectation to put on someone. Like you have the one thing, so that is therefore 100% everything I need, They both encourage each other to self-indulge and be impractical. Ryan's sun sextile Blake's Venus. They really love each other and Blake boosts Ryan's ego. They both have a desire for cooperation and harmony and Ryan feels adored by Blake. Ryan's sun sextile Blake's Mars. They are straightforward with each other and they motivate each other. They give each other space and they have different hobbies. I feel like this would be a bit more testament to how they have very different, like, I don't want to say very different careers because they're both actors. But they're both, doing their own projects and everything, supposedly very involved, but in different ways and have different positions in that and everything. So I wonder if that way they could give each other space and have those sort of different hobbies, so to speak. Ryan admires Blake's drive and they can further the other's goals. Neither feels blocked and they both give the other confidence. They participate in activities together and they tend to get annoyed with each other. Ryan's sun opposite Blake's Jupiter. They have a positive meeting. I mean, meeting on the set isn't necessarily like inherently bad. They have a difficult marriage and there's a sense of unreliability. They have different life philosophies. We're seeing again the different views and everything, so that's there. There's a desire to make each other happy. We're also seeing again, and Ryan sometimes sees Blake as unrealistic. Blake sometimes sees Ryan as self-centered, which kind of goes back to the previous aspect, these points. Ryan seeing Blake as unrealistic, it could be a mixed thing of because we did see that he admires her drive and everything, so it could be a mixed bag of he does admire it, but you're also unrealistic sort of thing. But we also did see, with the whole we're seeing Ryan as self-centered thing, we did see how Blake tends to boost his ego and he really feels adored by her. So it seems like a sort of problem. I don't want to say a problem she created as such, but she's giving into, she is a party to it, if that makes sense. They sometimes can expect too much of each other, we're seeing again, and Ryan brings stability to this relationship. Ryan's sun conjunct Blake's Pluto. There's a deep attraction and Ryan is drawn to Blake. It's not a superficial union and Blake is more dominant. I mean, the only ways we're seeing her a bit more dominant is a bit more creatively and intelligence-wise. We've seen a bit more on that for Blake than Ryan. They both have a fear of losing the other, which is interesting with the context of they expect too much of each other. It's a difficult marriage and everything. They kind of seem to really want to make this work, but it is very difficult. Ryan triggers Blake's jealousy and possessiveness. Not surprisingly so. Like, with the context they meet, I don't feel like, this is completely wrong on Blake to think that way. They both have a desire to know each other's deepest secrets. Now for the intermission. This video is brought to you by me, my Etsy store, Adeline the Astrologer. If you ever watch this and think, hey, I would like her to read my Synastry chart, well, I will. I do personalized Synastry chart readings on my Etsy store. I do both basic and detailed ones. The basic ones are a bit more simple to understand and really good for those just beginning out in astrology, getting their heads around it, or just as a fun gift idea. The detailed readings are very similar to what I do here, so it's a lot of it just with my insights and interpretation on the chart. So if you're interested in that and everything else, astrology and tarot, readings and gifts, definitely check out my Etsy store for that. I'm always releasing new other things there as well. And you can even just favorite the store just to support me for free. Thank you for listening, and let's get back to the reading. So now it's on to Moon. We have Blake's Moon in Virgo and Ryan's Moon in Scorpio. Ryan has manipulative tendencies and Ryan is loyal to a fault to Blake. That is interesting context. So he's loyal to her. That's nice. They both have a tendency to be analytical with each other, which we saw in the beginning, how they both tend to be tend to be critical or hard on each other. So that's a bit of an interesting dynamic. Blake's Moon overlaid in Ryan's 12th house. There's a lack of trust and Ryan senses Blake's suspicions. Okay, so on Blake's end, again, going back to the idea how she seems to be triggered in this relationship to feel jealous and possessive. Blake feels that Ryan is hiding something and there's no logical base for the lack of trust and paranoia. It's difficult for them to deal with wounded feelings. Ryan's Moon overlaid in Blake's 3rd house. It's cooperative and friendly and Ryan admires Blake's lifestyle. There are rumors, or I don't know, there is talk of how Ryan was quite attracted to Blake because of her sort of more family oriented values, which I'm not sure how she would have, shown to Ryan as such, because obviously when they met, it's not like she had kids, so Ryan was she's someone to have kids and a family with or anything. So I wonder if maybe there were snippets that, Ryan was seeing through Blake when they met each other or something like that. Or even, because it's the whole family lack of career orientation sort of thing as well. Potentially, I don't know, maybe Blake was at a point in her career where she was, I don't know, slowing down or something compared to Scarlett, who was speeding things up and everything. Ryan is supportive of Blake's priorities. Yeah, so it's that's kind of shining through. Blake enjoys Ryan's company and Blake thinks of Ryan often. It's relaxed and productive and they don't irritate each other. They communicate well. Blake's Moon is sextile Ryan's Mars. They are open with each other and Ryan feels more assertive, which is interesting because we saw how Blake is the more dominant one, so I wonder if we'll see a bit more with that leans towards. Blake makes Ryan feel at ease and Ryan helps Blake be more confident and bold. That's nice. That's reciprocated. There is mutual fascination and they both learn about themselves here. Blake feeds into Ryan's ego, we're seeing again, and it can be tumultuous at times. Not surprisingly so. Blake's Moon is square Ryan's Neptune. They misunderstand each other's signals and it's a confusing relationship. We have seen things of how, I think it was Blake gets confused of Ryan a bit, especially with the unpredictability. I think we've been seeing that, so in that way, there's a possibility of neglecting each other. I mean, potentially, we did see how they give each other space, so maybe too much space is given to the point of them neglecting each other. Blake is unsure of Ryan's intentions and there's difficulty maintaining their relationship, but yeah, we've been seeing. Blake is sensitive to Ryan's moods. Ryan's Moon is sextile Blake's Mercury. They have long conversations and there's a mutual understanding. They feel comfortable being open with each other. We're seeing a lot of how they're very open with each other, which I think from what they have shared, because I'm pretty sure they're both, I think it was Blake that, really goes on about how she, her and Ryan are, very involved with each other's careers and projects that they do and everything. So I think obviously in that way they'll be quite open with each other. It's a friendship, which we already saw before. So I wonder if maybe like with their meeting and everything, like they were just friends first and then it led to something more. They both like a busy environment and they value the other's opinions and advice, which I guess would make sense of why they are involved in each other's projects and everything if they value the other, what they have to say and everything. Ryan's moon is sextile Blake's Venus. Ryan feels Blake will always be there for him. I don't really blame him. You know, she's very feeding into his ego and everything. And also, like, I think it kind of helps, or it could be contributing to why he is loyal to her to a fault, because he feels that she's loyal to him to a fault. Ryan has a desire to have a family with Blake. So that is probably rings very true. That whole idea that potentially, because it is very rumored, you know, that what's it called, like Scarlett Johansson, very career oriented. Ryan was not happy, so she found Blake essentially, which kind of does go back to the idea of like when they met, they were both hoping to find what they were looking for, and that whole idea of like stepping out on someone because the one thing missing. So I wonder if, you know, Blake somehow demonstrated she was interested in having a family, not so much career, and that was the one thing missing for Ryan that he chose to step out on Scarlett with, and that is why he has a desire to have a family with Blake. Hopefully that all made sense. That was a bit of a long train, but that's where my head's going with it. It seems like that is quite true from what we're seeing. They care for each other in difficult emotional circumstances, and Blake brings beauty to Ryan's life. I mean, if they live together, and because she seems to be a bit of like a homemaker as well, like that is a way, you know, bringing beauty to his space and everything. They might be too accommodating to each other, and shared social life is important. They enjoy creating a nice home environment. Yeah. Ryan's moon is sextile Blake's Mars. This is a repeated aspect, just inverted, so everything from before is further emphasized, but also Blake feels more assertive. We're seeing that. Ryan feeds into Blake's ego. I assume this would be like in context of like he seems to think she's quite like brilliant and smart and everything, so in that way. Ryan makes Blake feel at ease, and Blake helps Ryan be more confident and bold. That, not surprisingly, so we've seen. Ryan's moon opposite Blake's Jupiter. Their emotions can get out of control and there's unkept promises. Interesting. Their beliefs are conflicted. We did see that before, didn't we? How like there are different philosophies, like values conflict and everything, which is very interesting. Ryan may smother Blake and both think the other's a bad influence. I mean, when they first met, yes. They're attracted to the other because the other has what they need. I wonder what Blake was getting from Ryan, because like I think very clearly we've seen how, you know, Blake, you know, the whole family thing and the whole homemaker thing we've seen with for Ryan. But I'm not sure like what Blake got out of this, you know, with Ryan, because she was what with Penn Badgley, I think it was. I saw that she was with. So I feel like him and Ryan at the time were kind of at similar career points, you know. I think even now they're both successful. Obviously, Ryan is a bit more sort of, you know, known to be a bit more like business savvy and all of that. But I'm not sure like what, like at the time especially, what that difference was. Maybe it was something else though. Ryan's moon is sextile Blake's Neptune. Art is a shared interest and they sense each other's feelings. They understand each other and there's a mystical meeting. It's not particularly mystical. I mean, it could be potentially like, you know, it felt like fate that they did meet each other and like maybe they got onto the project in a weird way. There's a spiritual connection. So I assume spirituality wise, maybe that's not where they conflict on like values and everything. It's something else. Ryan's moon conjunct Blake's Pluto. They trigger strong feelings in each other and they work through past relationships together. That's interesting. There's immense spiritual growth and it's not a superficial relationship. It's easy for them to talk about darker and deeper subjects. Ryan can become needy of Blake. So he is very like loyal to her and like possessive of her almost in a way. Blake may see Ryan as too sensitive and they have a strong mental connection. They subconsciously need each other. It's so weird because it's like almost karmic in a way, dare I say. with the whole, because we've seen a lot of how it is difficult to maintain this relationship, but there is also this thing of like they need each other. They can make great wealth together, not surprisingly so, and intense passion keeps them together for a long time. So at least that's there to glue them together. So now it's on to Mercury. We have Blake's Mercury in Virgo and Ryan's Mercury in Libra. Blake gets impatient with Ryan and Blake teaches Ryan to be more practical. So it seems like she's quite like aware with things like practical wise, like intelligence wise and everything. Ryan teaches Blake to be open-minded and they fundamentally communicate the same way. Blake's Mercury overlaid in Ryan's 12th house. Blake has a sixth sense of Ryan and Blake may feel overwhelmed of Ryan, which I think goes back to the idea of their like, spiritual connection. They subconsciously need each other. Ryan may feel violated. I think this could go back to potentially, because we did see how Blake has these suspicions. She's, tendency to be a bit jealous and possessive. I wonder if maybe, Blake has these like, sixth sense moments and that she acts upon, and that is where Ryan may feel violated. Their intuition is strong and it can easily become a paranoid relationship. There is certainly foundation for it. Ryan's Mercury overlaid in Blake's third house. Ryan is more chatty around Blake and Ryan enjoys long conversations with Blake. Blake will enjoy conversations with Ryan, which it seems like they do, because we did see how they enjoy talking about their days together. They're very open with each other. So we've seen a lot of they're open. Blake's Mercury square Ryan's Venus. They find each other interesting and attractive and they don't understand each other's romantic ideas. The way I want to read this, because it seems like obviously they did if they left their partners for each other, supposedly. I should say allegedly on that, because that's very grey area. But I think this could also be they don't understand each other's romantic relationships, because, potentially they are, bonding so well to each other. We're so compatible. Why are you necessarily with the other person, particularly if they are different? Mundane communication is difficult and exchanging ideas is a source of conflict. I feel like this would be more related to like the different philosophies and worldviews and everything. They have frequent disagreements and there's a difference in music taste that is there. They need to learn to listen to each other. Blake's Mercury sextile Ryan's Mars. Ryan encourages Blake to put her thoughts into action and there is healthy competitiveness. They work well together and Ryan can take things too personally. They inspire each other to improve themselves. Blake's Mercury sextile Ryan's Uranus. They attract opportunities as a couple. I think, very understandably, so that kind of seems to be their thing. Obviously, like they must be a pretty, I don't want to say good power duo, because that's also a grey area at this point, isn't it? But potentially before, the whole drama with, I don't even know what you would call it. But yeah, before all of that, they were quite a popular couple, so I assume they would have attracted opportunities together. Blake finds Ryan intellectually stimulating and perceptive, and they're perceptive and intuitive of each other. Not surprisingly so, they seem to have that sort of connection. They have open communication and they encourage the other's visions, which we just saw with Ryan for Blake. Blake's Mercury square Ryan's Neptune. They think creatively around each other and they both need to be clearer with communication. Blake sees Ryan as abstract, which I think could go back to the idea of like her finding him a bit unpredictable, maybe being a bit vague. Blake misunderstands Ryan and Ryan sees Blake as practical and logical, which not surprisingly so. He seems to view her as this being a bit more like, wiser, more intelligent, brilliant, all of that. Blake's trust for Ryan fades. She has difficulty trusting. That seems to be coming up a lot here. But it's just interesting to see that it fades over anything else. Ryan feels misunderstood by Blake and Ryan feels limited by Blake. I don't know in what way. Ryan's Mercury sextile Blake's Uranus. This is a repeated aspect, just inverted. So everything from before is further emphasized, but also Ryan finds Blake intellectually stimulating. So now it's time for Venus. We have Blake's Venus in Virgo and Ryan's Venus in Sagittarius. These are both mutable signs. There's initial attraction and there are major differences. Again, there's sort of like life philosophies and everything. They disagree on money. What have we seen with money? I think we've mostly seen that they're quite a bit more excessive with money. I think it's been, we haven't seen a whole lot though, so that is there. They both aspire to learn through relationships. I think we did see that they both like learning from each other. So that is then, I think, probably a good thing because they learn as they go because they have their challenges, it seems like. They're willing to talk things over, and Ryan values Blake's insight. Again, that whole idea that they do work together or like at least, get each other's opinions on the other's projects is very present. Blake's Venus overlaid in Ryan's 12th house. Blake is deeply moved by Ryan, and Blake is needy and vulnerable around Ryan, which I think goes back to the beginning. Like, we did see how, because we saw how she feels like Ryan doesn't approve of him, like she finds him a bit like exotic and strange, like needy and vulnerable, I think would be the word. Like, if you're it's just felt like Blake was very insecure, which I guess it is just her being a bit needy and vulnerable. Blake acts different in this relationship, and Ryan doesn't understand Blake. Ryan feels Blake is too good to be true. Interesting. Ryan feels insecure in this relationship, and Blake tries to hold on to this relationship. They're both, I think that might be a way to put it. They're both like weirdly like insecure, needy. Like, we saw they're subconsciously needy of each other. Ryan's Venus overlaid in Blake's 4th house. Ryan feels the need to protect himself from Blake, and Blake senses Ryan's hesitancy. There is strong magnetism, and Ryan has a strong attraction to Blake. Uncertainty and tension characterizes their relationship. Yeah, not surprisingly so. Their Venuses are squared to each other, so they approach love and domestic life in different ways. We did see how, Ryan admires Blake's lifestyle, so I wonder if there was just a bit of a difference maybe when they met, or even maybe they have different styles, and potentially because, Blake, I don't know, she's like the homemaker and everything. She's the one calling on the shots in like domestic life. But Ryan just has a different approach anyway, just kind of lets her do whatever. That's where my brain's going. But we did also see they don't understand each other's romantic ideas and everything. So maybe they do have different romantic ideas. It's not like they don't understand each other's like romantic partners. There are some differences in that sort of thing. They're attracted to their differences, and they have different social needs. Their differences become more obvious over time, and decision making together is complicated. Neither know how to please the other, and they have different social backgrounds. I have no idea really with Ryan, besides like he's Canadian. With Blake, she is from like a Hollywood family, I think it is. Like her family of actors, I should say. Not necessarily a Hollywood family. I'm not sure how powerful her family is. I do know like her father's like a director. Her mother was also an actress and everything. So that is her sort of whole social background. So I'm not sure if that makes any difference to the relationship. Arguments over money easily occur, which, again, we saw, there is that sort of, they're being generous with their spending, we saw a bit earlier in the relationship, but we did just see how they disagree on money, so that is there. It's a difficult long-term relationship, and they both need to learn to be open. I feel like they have. Like, we saw a lot of how they're open with each other, so I think that's been learned. They have an ability to have an honest and balanced relationship. I think so. They seem to want to make this work. Blake's Venus squared Ryan's Jupiter. Blake feels more confident and attractive around Ryan, and Ryan may be irritated with Blake's possessiveness. I think, going back to the idea how she gets a bit jealous, possessive, and potentially she may do things that like violate Ryan, and there seems to be, Ryan feels anyway, that there isn't a logical base to it, so potentially that is where he's irritated. They can find a happy way to share their life, and it's a promising relationship. I think it's promising in terms of they want to make it work, but I still agree with the whole sentiment. It's not as promising as it looks. Like, maybe promising to a certain extent, but it doesn't seem like this perfect couple that they seem to want to portray. Ryan's Venus square Blake's Mars. There's jealousy and possessiveness, and Ryan sees Blake as dominant. Blake sees Ryan as seductive with no substance. That could have been her initial, viewpoint on him. Even now, potentially with his, career, he seems to try sell himself as this more sort of attractive, charismatic sort of person. Not that he isn't to some people, but that seems to be, his whole thing, rather than a lot of substance, if that makes sense, compared to other actors. So now it's time for Mars. We have Blake's Mars in Virgo and Ryan's Mars in Scorpio. Ryan is possessive of Blake, not surprisingly so, and it's an experimental relationship. Blake tends to be critical of Ryan, and Ryan intimidates Blake. I'm not really surprised, because we saw the whole idea how she feels Ryan doesn't approve of him. She tends to be a bit more needy and vulnerable and everything. Blake's Mars overlaid in Ryan's 12th house. Ryan feels uncomfortable around Blake, and Blake brings out a hidden side of Ryan, which I think we did see how, like, Blake also has a different side around, she's a bit different around Ryan as well. So they both bring out a different side in each other, it seems like. They fight each other, which I think goes back to the idea that those disagreements and everything, not surprisingly so. It's a relationship formed from having to protect one another. That's a bit of a yikes. From what? Maybe that is what maybe Blake was going through. It's hard to say though, because don't want to make any sort of accusations, like allegedly. Big allegedly, because obviously with context how they met, like there was something that that Blake wasn't happy with in terms of her relationship. We saw with Ryan seemingly what that was, but with Blake we haven't really seen anything why she would have been drawn to Ryan as such, and like what she would have, the missing piece was for her in the current relationship. So I don't know, maybe there was something bad going on there, very allegedly big asterisks. Blake feels drained by Ryan, and Ryan wants to protect Blake. Ryan sees the more fragile part of Blake, so yeah, that could be where she's a bit different around Ryan, her sort of fragility and the whole needy, vulnerable thing. Ryan's Mars overlaid in Blake's 4th house. Ryan pushes Blake out of her comfort zone, and Ryan can't provide the peace Blake wants. I think that will be related to the unpredictability thing, honestly. Ryan feels flustered around Blake, and Blake is nurturing to Ryan. Blake creates a safe space for Ryan, literally, domestically in the home. Arguments are heated due to being defensive and emotional. Blake's Mars square Ryan's Jupiter. They meet in a fun way. I mean, on the movie set, that could be fun. Ryan sees Blake as selfish, and Blake sees Ryan's logic as a hindrance. So again, kind of like criticizing his logic and everything, she kind of is a bit of on the high pedestal with that sort of thing. They encourage each other to be reckless. That is one way to put it. Ryan may be a bad influence on Blake. I think we did see they both view each other as like a bad influence, so that's there. Ryan's Mars conjunct Blake's Pluto. It's competitive and there are power struggles. Not surprisingly, it seems like Blake is quite logical and has assertiveness in that way, being like critical and everything, but it also seems like Ryan has the higher power and everything in some ways. Their fights can be big and they're both likely to transform here, not surprisingly so. So that was the final aspect, bringing us to the end of the reading. If you are still watching, please share your thoughts below. I would be very curious to see what you guys have to say about this one. Definitely a bit of a controversial talked about couple. And if you have made it this far, please consider subscribing for more. I post these readings twice a week. And besides that, give this video a like and I will see you guys next time. Bye!